for a while, personal experiences with kind of with these chemicals and understanding their danger. And so we went to the grounds crew that was spraying, and we just asked them simply what they were spraying, and they were spraying Ranger Pro. And so with our teammates, we talked to them and asked if they would stop spraying, and our team would just pick the weeds by hand. And we kind of took this model of collaboration with the grounds crew and took that to the rest of campus. And you know, we got the first 2 lawns, the 2 biggest green spaces on campus. We worked with the groundskeepers to remove herbicides from there, and then kept going and kept going and kept going, and started petitioning for the whole UC system. And this movement and this mission has evolved into now what is a national campus, and so that is what Rewild has turned into. So we coach other college students about how to bring this fellowship and this campaign to their schools. And so we're working at UH. You met some of our fellows here tonight. We're working right now at 10 campuses across the nation. We have a 10-month fellowship. And maybe you can give more of that.
Yeah, I can take it from there. Thank you, Bridget. Yeah, as Bridget said, we work with students and groundskeepers to try and, you know, have there not be another person with lead story, another groundskeeper that's not exposed to glyphosate or other toxic chemicals. And we really think if we can, you know, even save a handful of groundskeepers from what happened to Lee, that would be a huge impact and a huge win for us. So yeah, as Bridget said, we're working with 11 schools in 10 states across the country. We're working with 20 student fellows and bringing this campaign to their campus. So far, some of our major wins have included getting UC Berkeley to go entirely organic, which means they're no longer spraying a lot of the synthetic toxic herbicides on their campus, and they're really trying to increase biodiversity and climate resilience through tending to soil health. We got the UC system to ban glyphosate for everyday use on all 10 UC campuses. Yeah, you'd be shocked to know that almost every school campus across the country, including a lot of schools here in Hawai'i, is spraying glyphosate and Roundup and a lot of other toxic chemicals to keep the lawns looking perfectly manicured and weed-free. So we're really trying to end that use and that practice. And at Loyola Marymount University, where those went, they have committed to using only organic herbicide products, so no Roundup and no glyphosate. And at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, we are currently working with the grounds team to implement organic land care through some pilot projects and hopefully eliminate glyphosate use at the entire campus. And yeah, so that's our mission. That's kind of how we work. And yeah, I mean, as you saw in the movie, Roundup they pulled it for retail sale for home and gardens this year. Is what they committed to do, but that doesn't mean they're going to stop using it on school grounds. So it's really important that we kind of continue this movement to eliminate glyphosate and other toxic pesticides from school grounds and keep our children and groundskeepers safe.
And I just want to say thank you so much for all of you who have been here. Really, we were able to host this event because of our supporters and our partners, and so I just want to say a huge thank you. And also to say that there's a sign-up sheet in the back if you'd like to stay connected, and if you feel compelled to further contribute to our work, there's a QR code to our donation page, because all of this really is because of our incredible supporters and foundations. So thank you all for being here, and I'm going to pass it off to Shannon.
Yeah, just one more thing. If you all know any college-age students, or if you are a student in college, just stay connected to our work. You can email us at campus@rewild.org or sign in at our back table. We're going to be putting out calls for our next round of fellowship, and we'd love to get students that you all know, because you all seem so engaged and are obviously passionate about this work and now know kind of the reason why we do this. And if you attended a college or university or a school at some point in your life and you want to make them stop using Roundup and go organic, yeah, check in at our table. You can email us where you went, and we'd love to get the schools that you're alumni at to go organic as well. Yeah, I'll pass it off to Ken to start the panel.
I'm so proud of all of it. Getting to work alongside all of you is amazing. So thank you. And we will be doing the raffle at the end, so incentive to stay till the very end. Not that you need it, because we have 3 amazing people here that I'm honored to get to talk with today. So first off, we have TJ Cuaresma. TJ is the eldest of 67 grandchildren. She has deep roots in the Aina of Wailua, Haleiwa, Waimea, Sunset Beach, Marconi, Kahuku, Hau'ula, and the shores alongside the northern side of Oahu. Her lineage consists of not only master canoe navigators, but also farmers and fishermen. And the kuleana of being stewards of Aina, Kai, and Vai were instilled in her from a young age. High school found TJ and her family living in Whitmore Village, where pineapple was king and home gardens flourished. Unbeknownst to TJ, as she grew up on Oahu, she would learn skills that would garner her the nickname Malama Mama. Providing food, clothing, and basic medical supplies are ways that TJ continues to malama her family and her community. Finding resources and connecting these resources to community members also keeps the Malama Mama occupied when she's not working as a human resources coordinator. It wasn't until the death of a beloved family member in 2008 that TJ started questioning the use of pesticides and chemicals on the ag land in Whitmore Village and Wailua, the 2 communities that provided so much life and sustenance for her ohana. Taking care of her family and her community is TJ's kuleana. Thank you so much for being here. Next, we have Fern Ānuenue Holland. Fern was born and raised in Kapahi and grew up on the east side of Kauai. After graduating from Kapa'a High School in 2002, she received her Bachelor of Science with a triple major in Wildlife Management, Environmental Science, and Marine Biology from Griffith University School of Environment in Australia. Holland has worked professionally as an environmental scientist and consultant for ecological, contaminated land, and other environmental assessments, both in Hawaii and overseas. Since returning home from university in 2012, Holland has been active in local environmental and community issues. She's passionate about expanding sustainable food systems and agriculture, restoration of native ecosystems, land restoration, and community-based land management. She's the board president of the newly established Kauai Food Hub and is committed to the advancement of food production, agriculture, and sustainability for Hawaii. And we have a few people from the mayor's office working on this issue, so we gotta talk with them after. Holland was an integral part of the development and passing of Kauai County Bill 2491. So raise your hand if you're familiar with Bill 2491. Awesome. I'm sure you'll get into it, but I'm happy to have people here from that fight. So that was the Disclosure Buffers and Protections Bill related to biotech experimental research practices. She also organized the 2013 March in Poipu and later the Mana March in Lehui for the passing of Bill 2491. She's worked for 15 years on environmental justice issues associated with biotech, GM experimentation, and industrialized agriculture in Hawaii and globally. So, a lot of good stuff happening. And finally, we have Kūʻike Kamakea-Ohelo. You have so many titles, I'm like shocked, but he's a research specialist for the SWET Center for Sustainable Food Systems. He's commissioner in the state of Hawaii for Land Use Commission. He's the president of the board of directors for the Cho Global Natural Farming Hawaii. There's a whole bunch more. President of the board of directors of the Kahua Foundation, vice president of the Maui Hemp Institute, and we'll have to skip over a few because there's just too many titles. And vice president of the Hawaiian Indigenous Agriculture Institute. And Kūʻike is a Native Hawaiian son and father, born from a pedigree of Native Hawaiian rights activists, Hawaiian cultural practitioners, farmers, and fishermen. Growing, gathering, and the sharing of food was with the island community has been a passion of his from a very young age. He's a farmer by trade, and he's been working in various capacities of Hawaii food systems since 2004. including traditional local i'a restoration, Native Hawaiian culture, community food-based systems, natural farming education in Hawaii and around the world. His dedication to community is shadowed only by his commitment to leave a legacy of being a great ancestor for his keiki and yours, leaving them a future of clean air, clean food, and clean water. So thank you so much for being here. I would love to start with you, Kūʻike, just as a farmer, like after seeing this film and seeing just how reliant the world is on pesticides, like how do you feel as an organic farmer, and do you feel like, you know, how can we support more farmers to do what you're doing?
Well, first of all, hello, my kako. I first want to mahalo for the invitation, Mackenzie. And it's such an honor to sit up here on the panel and share this space with all of you folks. And also mahalo to the organizers this evening. I just want to, for the record, just say that I'm not a certified organic farmer. However, we pride ourselves with a natural standard. Yeah. And with that being said, let me frame the question a little differently. I'm a farmer by trade, so I'm not a speaker, I'm not a talker, I'm not a writer, none of those things. So what I'm gonna share or say to you gonna be very plainly. Yeah. I believe we gotta figure out first, what is the goal? Is the goal to transition more farms or more farmers into organic practices? Or is the goal to produce more clean food? Yeah, I think we really, if you look at it, it seems the same, but it really isn't. Because as you saw on that very long list at the very end, yeah, where is glyphosate found? In organic food. So we really got to be clear on our goal. It is our goal collectively to leave a cleaner, healthier future for our keiki through means and ways of producing clean food. Then I can answer it this way. Yeah. At the same time, we need to support policy, yeah, that has oversight over the uses or the use of these restricted pesticides or these carcinogenic chemicals. I also believe that we need to grow the awareness within the community ourselves. Currently in Hawaii, almost all of the farmers' needs is imported. So for a farmer to transition in Hawaii, yeah, I believe the shortest route to that transition is to provide the infrastructure locally to support any and all interests. One, from the transition for the transition from conventional ag to organic ag production, and two, for new upcoming farmers who are interested in growing and producing food locally organic, which I will say over the last 5 years, there has been an immense interest in the new upcoming farmers to produce food here locally, organically. Hope that answers your question.
Oh, that's great, and I think that's a good transition to Fern's work. When you mentioned the policies, and I would love to kind of hear where things are at, Fern, with your work. And I know that we just recently got data of, you know, what is sprayed on Oahu. You've been in this fight against pesticides and GMOs for a long time in Hawaii. Where do you feel like we are, you know, in this legislative session? Maybe not everything is happening the way that we've wanted so far. So could you just kind of let people know, you know, where we're at in this movement to when it comes to policy?
Okay, thank you, Mackenzie, and mahalo to everyone as well for hosting, for being involved, for inviting. Such an important and incredible movie, and if that movie doesn't upset you, there's probably something seriously wrong. You should probably go to the doctor. So I just want to, before we get into this legislative session, just a little bit of background. For those of you that don't know about Bill 2491, it was something that we started on Kauai 10 years ago this year. We organized those marches and we worked with a council member to pass a countywide bill that would have given us disclosure of pesticide use. It would have given us disclosure, buffer zones around schools, homes, and hospitals that would have provided a 500-foot buffer, and an environmental impact assessment that looked at the collective impact of 5 of the largest chemical companies in the world in a very small area, the Mana Plain, of the west side of Kauai. And the impact that they collectively had utilizing our land for biotech experimentation. And I just want to explain a little bit about the difference between what you see in the documentary, which covers a lot of large-scale farming agriculture, to what we are in Hawaii. For many years, we were the experimental headquarters for the world for biotechnology. And so we had some of the largest, highest concentrations of experimental field trials, which actually allow for chemical corporations to use pesticides outside of label requirements, in higher doses, in higher amounts, in ways that you could never use them in traditional agricultural farming. And so I just want to be clear on that, because there is a little bit of an important aspect of just how Hawaii has been used in this experimental way for so long. And so that bill, and I encourage you, I can't really go into that, but that bill was covered very heavily in a documentary called Poisoning Paradise, that the Brosnans, actually Pierce Brosnan 007, I mean, comes to the rescue, makes a documentary, but you know, really covers that whole battle, and I encourage you to watch that as well. And you know, over the last May 1st, will be 15 years of me, you know, fighting Monsanto and just waking up with this feeling in my gut that this is what I was meant to do. And you know, I've learned a lot about their tactics, and it continues today in our state legislature. It continues today in the conversations that we have trying to get protections. 10 years after Bill 2491 was passed, and Kauai became the first county in the United States to pass a bill related to pesticides in this way, and to ask for disclosure, we still don't really have the disclosure that we've been fighting for. We still don't have buffer zones. We still don't have the kind of protections that we need. And a lot of that you see, like they talk about in the documentary, these corporations hire these alternate beings to write and pretend that their documentary or their documents prove that these things are safe when they're not, and they continually attack people like me. I mean, we were majorly attacked during 2491. They sent people from Florida to convince our council members that we were, you know, stupid white hippies from the North Shore. I'm from the East Side, so anyway. So it turned into a major thing, and they used a tactic that Big Tobacco has used. They've used tactics to divide people by race. They've used tactics to pick communities apart and pin us against each other so that we can't collectively fight these major corporations, and that tactic continues today. And one of the shill organizations that really did a lot of damage was the Cornell Alliance for Science. And you know, I've written about them on national media pieces, and the amount of discrediting that they did was just phenomenal. And you know, in the beginning, you know, we were just fighting for disclosure because we really didn't know what we were dealing with. And so it's like, I'm an environmental scientist, I come home from college, I went away to get educated, to come back to help Hawaii, to put my heart into what I thought was gonna be native species ecosystem restoration, and ended up fighting chemical corporations because my friends were having babies that their intestines were being born, you know, outside of their body. And we had, you know, doctors saying that there could be 10 times the national average of birth defects that are extremely gnarly. You know, the highest statistics, you know, suggested that in some of these places, it was no possible mathematical statistical way that it was an accident that we had multiple people in a small area developing these crazy birth defects, right? And so after, you know, years and years of battle, in 2018 we passed a very small win. I consider a small win because we started to get disclosure. We also banned chlorpyrifos, like Dr. Evson mentioned, which was a really kind of a big deal because we were the first state in the United States to do that. But that data took years and years to process, and I just recently got to share a snippet of the use in north central Oahu. Basically everything north of Wahiwa to Waialua to Haleiwa, not including Turtle Bay, not including Mililani and anything south of that. And it took us years to get that data because they reported after they were mandated to report in chicken scratch written on the back of papers and in different units and different measurements and not even in English. And so it took years to compile that data into a way that could actually be compared to apples and not apples to cheesecake, because that's what we were dealing with. So I think once we finally got to look at that, it took us a while then to map it and look at, well, what's going on here? And like with my background is like, okay, well, where do we need to be concerned? And my focus has largely been on Kauai, being from Kauai, being immersed in that community and watching through my high school years, Pioneer and Syngenta expand on the west side. I really kind of have been focused there, but when we started to finally get to look at this 2019 data last year and map it, and it has a lot of faults, and I'm not going to get into the full depth of that, but we realized that Central Oahu was really, really concerning, and it kind of just made me drop everything and pivot a little. We over the last year we've started to look at what's happening on these handful of parcels that kind of surround these communities, and it's extremely concerning. But our work is focused on restricted use pesticides, and I just want to be really clear that Roundup is a general use pesticide. It's something that historically you can go down to the store, you can buy it and use it yourself. There's also 21 different RUPs, restricted use pesticides, which are much more toxic. Well, it's really toxic, known to be toxic, and restricted for a reason. They're only purchased through specific dealers. You have to have a certification, there's a process, but yet they're using huge amounts. And what we found in Central Oahu is, in 2019 alone, and right now we're crunching the 2020 and 2021 data, over 108 tons, over 200,000 pounds of restricted use pesticide. Restricted use pesticides, this does not include the glyphosate that people are using everywhere, and we have no idea how much glyphosate is used. We have no idea where. It's not recorded, there's no data collection. We're just talking about the restricted use pesticides that we got from Act 45. Over 200,000 pounds used north of Wahiwa in a single year. And particularly of concern are two fumigants, 1,3-D for short, and metasodium for short, are these two extremely toxic fumigants. There was over 177,000 pounds of 1,3-D used by Dole alone in 2019 alone. So that's the work that Mackenzie mentions, and the presentation is actually available on our HAPA YouTube channel if you want to watch my presentation in Whitmore recently. And I want to also say before I stop talking, because I'm talking a lot, but is that catching these corporations is really, really difficult. And for 15 years, I've been trying to share this information, share my concerns. I was in my science degree in college in Australia when I realized what was going on. And when the ball dropped that was what was on the monoplane, and when we drove out to Polihali, that's what we drove past. It was like this pivotal moment for me. And since that time, I've realized how hard it is to get anywhere and how hard these chemical corporations fight us. People like me, really a nobody, come out, guns blazing, take her down. I'm surprised I'm still here today. But catching them is really hard, and holding them accountable is even harder. And as far as I understand, Lee has not been paid.
He was finally paid.
He was finally paid. How much was he paid?
I think after lawyers' fees and stuff like that, when it was further reduced, probably close to $20 million.
So this is an incredible one-off example of actually holding them accountable in a way that really just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen with big tobacco, it doesn't happen with these big corporations. And the reason is because they don't usually make the kind of mistakes that they made in those emails, and it's really, really hard to hold them accountable. And you know, I just want to say that like this legislative session has been really disappointing, and you know, a huge thank you to Representative Peruso in the back of the room for, you know, she's one of the few that shows up time and time again, not just to events, but to actually do something in the legislature. And it's the house of cards in that building. It's extremely difficult to get anything done. The Capitol, as we like to call it, is basically just craps on you every single year. And since we were overturned in the federal court and our county bills were all thrown out, we've been fighting in the state ledge to get any action. And again, this year we introduced, you know, a bill to improve the reporting process, because the reporting is shocking, to give us buffer zones that kind of match what California has around schools, which is 1/4 mile of these restricted use pesticides, and other measures that would have started to look at neonicotinoids, which go unreported because they're not listed, and I can go on, and if you're interested about that, you know, let me know. But unfortunately, the agricultural chair did not hear any of our bills, did not. The deadline just passed last week. None of them were given first hearing, and so while we do have a couple of Senate bills alive and one House bill that might increase the fines from this $10,000 like minimum slap on the wrist fine that these corporations get from violating existing pesticide law time and time again as a cost of doing business in our communities, you know, we do have a few measures that are still alive, so to speak, but it's so long and it's so hard to get any kind of actual protections that it's really hard to then come to a community like Wahiawa and sit there and explain to them, you know, this heartbreaking data. Like, you know, how do you walk into a community and be like, you guys are getting poisoned like every single day, and I can't tell you when, and I can't tell you how to protect yourself, and I can't even tell you when to shut your windows. Not that that would really be the solution or help you, but the reality is it's just really hard to get action, and so unfortunately, you know, it's not happening. Sorry, that was wrong.
Thanks, Fern. And yeah, just to update, I believe Lee did finally get paid. I think after they reduced the amount and he paid half of it to the lawyers, I think it was around $20 million, but don't quote me on that. You know, he's still alive, which is more than what he or any doctor expected. But he's still sick. I mean, his skin still looks like that, and but he's been able to, you know, take a trip. He bought a house, like a bigger house than just the apartment that his family lived in. So he's doing okay, but you know, still suffering every day. I just wanted to update you on that. But yeah, thank you. And I want to open it up for questions. But before I do that, I just want to ask for TJ. I'd love to just have the audience hear more about your story and. You know, a beloved member of your family close to you passed away, and you started looking into this. Can you just talk a little bit about your journey as a, you know, an activated community member and what that was like?
Actually, I wasn't gonna use my hand. I was just gonna leave it on the stand, but I need the mic in my hand. But thank you again to Mackenzie and her team, to everybody that has come out here, to each and every one of you. Aloha, ahi ahi kako. Thank you again. And before I go to talk about myself, this lady and HAPA, the Hawaii Alliance for Progressive Action, they came out into our community. They came into our Whitmore village and shared this information about pesticides that were being used in our community, and the numbers and the ability of her and her team to break the numbers down so that it was digestible for all of us was amazing. They do have a sign-up sheet back there, Ms. Nanea, so if you haven't signed up for HAPA, please do so, because the work that they do is amazing, and it makes a difference, and it makes sense. The work that Kūʻike does, please, if you can support him in any way, please do so. Even if it's a $10 donation or a something or a Kūʻike, what can we do? hey Fern, what can we do? All of these groups that are here tonight, Hawai'i Seed, Rewild, all of these, and Lee, your book, if you guys haven't gotten it, please, Lee, could you hold your book up? Sorry, I'm gonna plug you. If you have not read that book, please, if there's anything that you take home with you tonight, it is that book. And I got one actually because he said he liked my Oli, so thank you, Lee. But anyway, so about myself, I don't like to think of myself as an activist with the word A-C-T-I-V-I-S, activist, V-I-S-T. I am an activist, A-C-T-I-V-E, activist. Because in our communities, we have to be active. We have to advocate for our communities, wherever you may live, if it's in Haleiwa or Kaneohe, wherever you live, you must be active. Because change does not happen if you are not active. What Mackenzie was saying about the family member, I really wanted to share this with you folks. In 2008, my mom's youngest brother, who was the lead mechanic at Dole in Whitmore Village, passed away. After he graduated from high school, he went into the Army. After the Army, when he came out in 1970, I think, his only job supporting his family was at Dole. Nighttime, daytime, split shifts, 12-hour shifts, whatever, what have you. His only way of providing for his family was being employed by Dole as their mechanic who went out into the fields to take care of their equipment. He passed away 1 month before he was going to retire. He was 61 years old and had probably been at Dole for 30-something years. This movie that we just saw, and it is a movie, it's not a documentary. It's a movie because it must move you. And if that doesn't move you, I hope what I'm about to share moves you to be active. Those pictures that they showed of Lee and the lesions that were on his back, on his head, his body, my uncle, God bless his heart, my uncle had those on his body. And I remember so vividly coming home after a football game when I was a senior in high school, and he's waiting at the table for me to come home. He's sitting with his cup of coffee there, and his hands swollen from working in those pineapple fields with lesions over his hands, his fingers, his arms. And I would ask him, oh, Uncle, not sore? Oh, no, girl. You go. Don't worry, Uncle. Uncle will take care of this. You go brush your teeth, go to bed. That is here. That was in Whitmore Village, 96786. That is not Lee's story. That is my uncle's story. So again, if that movie does not motivate you, does not move you to be active around restricted use pesticides, legislation that seems to hit walls of crapola, then I don't know what will. When you go to the store and you're buying vegetables, if you're not buying organic, if you're not going and buying from the farmers on the side of the road who are not using pesticides like those, then something is wrong with you. As I asked Jasmine back there, how can these lawyers, and I'm a paralegal by trade, how can these lawyers go to sleep each and every night knowing that they are defending someone who is killing us? We are an agricultural state. I don't care, tourism, not even. We are agriculture. Wahiawa, Haleiwa, Kahuku, we are agriculture. And if what Monsanto is doing doesn't sicken you to your stomach, then you're in the wrong state. You're not just in the wrong town, you're in the wrong state. And what you need to do is share the information. Go on my Facebook, I video all the way till Lee's lesions. Talk about restricted use pesticides. Go to your electeds, and I am so blessed that Representative Peruso is the representative for the district that I live in. And when I was working with her at the Capitol, she allowed my voice to be shared about these things. Get to your electeds, city council, senators, representatives. Use the pen, write a letter to the editor, send it in, call the news guys, have Eddie Dowd come out and talk to you, have Jelani Martinez come and talk to you. If you know of things that are going on in your community and you're not doing anything about it, then you might as well just change your last name to Bayer-Monsanto, because that's the same thing as doing nothing. The challenge is that we as a community, not just in Waiwa and Whitmore and Haleiwa, the challenges that we have in our community is that there is no transparency with the government agencies. Look at what he talked about the EPA. How many of you went to the town hall meeting that they just had about Red Hill, and the EPA lady was there, and she was stumbling all over herself? I want to show of hands back there. How many of you went to those meetings? How many of you watched those meetings and just could not believe the disgust of the EPA to say, oh, well, we're doing everything we can? This movie that we just saw shows exactly that. IARC. We as a community must come together, and we must be activist. We must be active. If your council person or your senator or your rep is not supporting what you know to be good, get your friends, get your family, write letters, call their office, attend their hearings. If they're having fundraisers, go to the fundraisers and say, Senator, what are you doing about these pesticides? What are you doing about the laws that you're blockading and you're not allowing to go past your committee? When it does get passed and into your committee, why are you not funding it? Because we need funding. In order for us to be an active community, to take care of our community, we need the government to work with us. You leave here tonight, you just remember, by yourself, by myself, I can't do it all. But with a community, we can make it happen. And if you are not sure how to make it happen, take my number, 808-238-9427. Talk to me. I will help you make it happen. I will put you in touch with people that can, like Kūʻike and Fern here. Because if you only watch this movie and you don't move, then you are not going to be active. You will not be an activist. ACTIVE, active. That's what you want to be. Pesticides, Monsanto, Bayer, all of these guys. Restricted use pesticides. They are truly pests. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we probably have time for just a couple questions, but if anyone has a question, raise your hand. I'm going to give you the mic.
No questions? We can go home. I'm out.
There.
This is a comment.
Okay, and you can say your name.
Maybe not welcome, but I'm going to do it anyway. My name's Ron. Thank you very much for your concern for the children and the adults and the Aina. I'm a Hawai'i from the mainland, but 50 years ago, 55. So I got a little credibility here. I remember the heptachlor issue. They said there's no problem with heptachlor, and that was in the cow's milk. The keikis, everybody was drinking it. But anyway, my wife and I, Melissa, were part of the Pure Water Foundation, which is in Hawaii, stopping community water fluoridation. We were successful. That's just a little background. but I'm listening to the conversation of lawyers and legal. Understand that that's corporate. When the lawyer works, attorneys are corporation minions. Call them that. They're good people, wonderful. But the term lawful or lawyer, one who works for the law, God's law, and common law, is something that we need to come into understand, I believe. And what I'm trying to drive at, I'm going to do that quickly, is that all corporations are mandated because we give them the charter. We, the people, men and women here, give them the authority to charter the corporations, but that's our charters. We don't understand that from the very foundation because we, the people, hold the power. But we've fallen asleep and we're not well versed in this distinction called the liquidation of corporations. You can go on Google, look at that, liquidation for corporations, or dissolution. There are a number of reasons you can do that. And one is if they don't follow procedures that are beneficial for the people. It's right in there, right? You can find that online. I'm saying that's as far as I've gone with it. But that is a mandate that could give a group of people the authority to go in and start writing not legislation, not ordinances, not statutes and codes and rules and regulations, but a notice to the corporation. You know what a notice is? That's putting them on notice. Okay, but I'm saying that you could do that, we could do that, and have the corporations, insist that the corporations dissolve themselves because of certain breaking of common law rights and God's rights. So I'm just going to finish. That's just a thought seed, just something I wanted to leave in that conversation.
Yeah, and feel free to talk to Ron after about it for more too.
Yes, sir. Ron, let's get your phone number out there too, so you too can be a resource to our community here.
My question is just, do we know much about the effect of these chemicals on our reefs and the ocean that they must drain into? Or is anyone looking at that? Or do you know anything about, can you share anything about that?
I will say that science is slow, and it took decades and decades and decades, like in the case of DDT, you know, for Rachel's book, all the stuff that had to happen for any of that knowledge to actually reach the public. There's so much science. When I looked at those 20 or 23 different restricted use pesticides collectively that were used between Whitmore and the coast, some of them were used within 400 feet of Waialua, which I'm not even totally sure now if they needed an NPDES permit, which somebody flagged to me the other day. But anyway, there's all kinds of knowledge about some of those pesticides being deadly to aquatic life. What we don't know is that, so we looked at the active ingredients, but products like Ranger Pro have glyphosate, the active ingredient, and then they have a list of other different inert ingredients. And sometimes those inert ingredients have major harm to bees, to reefs, to specific human health, all kinds of things. The really big problem that science is just unable to answer is what happens when you start to combine all these chemicals. And so if I take glyphosate and I mix it with dish soap, for example, Dawn or something, you know,
recommend that you invite that specific department from the LNR to your neighborhood board, and then you ask them the questions on that platform. That way it becomes public record. Because if you inquire individually, that email, that call can just disappear. So that's my recommendation, to activate and organize from the community.
Thank you, Kūʻike. Great idea.
I have a really quick question. Since you're experienced in the government, et cetera, Red Hill has been going on for decades, not just yesterday or last year or the year before. How is our state able to allow the military to do this to us we have seemingly no power as a state, and these people are poisoning us and their own people, which is unconscionable. And I hear now they're liable for taxes for the hotels they stayed at. I don't understand how the state, how our government, how those guys and gals up there are allowing the military to take over the health of our aquifers and our island.
Let me just answer that really quickly. Think about it. For those of you who have lived here in Hawaii, for those of you who have families that now live on the continent, me personally, military owns Hawaii, right? You throw enough federal money, military money into our roads, into our what have you, into structures, into not housing because they're taking all our housing. But if the military is controlling Hawaii, look at what they're doing to our lands up in Pohakuloa. It's a training area. Look at what they did to Kaho'olawe. How does state government allow that to happen? And there's your answer. My opinion only.
That happens to illegally occupied countries around the world. Pretty much my shortest answer for the night.
I was going to say the same thing.
Okay, I'll just say one more thing then. I don't know, but the military is not backing down, and they're the bigger fish to fry in the room, so to speak. I pick on chemical corporations because they kind of seem like a small tuna compared to the military. So I don't know about that answer, but collectively they function the same way, and we're collateral. And personally, I don't believe that we're going to get the change that we need from the military without major direct action. And it concerns me because I personally believe that the military would kill every single one of us before they risk the security of the Pacific Fleet. And that sounds kind of gruesome, but my experience in fighting chemical corporations suggests that the military, the high priority for the military is keeping the military and the Pacific Fleet moving, and until there's some other way that they can hold the amount of fuel that they want to hold, we're collateral. That's sad, but...
And let me just add one more thing to that. Look at all the former governors and mayors, maybe not so much the mayors, but the governors. How many of them are still alive? Ariyoshi, Cayetano, Waihe'e, Abercrombie. If you see them in your community, you see them walking around, ask them, how do you sleep at night? Allowing the military to do what they're doing to us. Just like the lawyers, when I asked Jasmine, how do these guys sleep at night? I could go on and on about this, but ask them, please. Ask them, and then let me know what they said, if they even answered.
Thank you very much for this incredible evening, and I'm really, I think, particularly moved by all the people who are here who care about this issue and care about our planet and care about our diets and what's being provided on the menu by corporations. And forgive me if some of this has been said, but one of the great movements that we've ever had was the divestiture movement, which was a response to apartheid. And it seems like, you know, this movie was just really covered a slice of what Monsanto is doing to the planet, and did an effective job of it. But I think that what really, even more than court cases and even more than public discourse and political discourse, these companies need to pay a very steep price with their stockholders. And almost everybody here either has a university or has a union or has a retirement plan that has investments, financial investments in corporations. And if we have a movement to really divest from Monsanto and their ilk for that matter, and if we really throw ourselves into that on the level that the students, it was a student movement like this one, that helped get rid of apartheid. And really just said, no, I will, my union, or my retirement plan, my university cannot invest in this. That hurts them where they live, more than a verdict that they can write off or appeal until the people die. So I just want to encourage that and see if that's something that's in the discussion, and thank everybody for, I'm sure I'm going to have a lot of nodding heads in the room, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I will say that a few years ago, we flew to Switzerland and got one stock in Syngenta so that we could speak at the Syngenta shareholder conference. That was a really incredible experience. I actually got removed by German police, which was really an interesting experience. But yes, you're absolutely right. Divest. But the reality is they fund so many universities. What I learned in the beginning of this work, why we weren't learning about this in university, here I am in a biology degree, halfway through my biology degree, and nobody's talking about how the world's food is being genetically engineered to withstand Roundup, and our professors aren't even talking about it, right? And they fund all the lab equipment in most universities across the United States. They fund programs, they fund the research, and this is part of the problem, and you saw some of that, tiny snippet of that, in the documentary of how invested they are in the data, in the studies, and the way that our system, especially in the U.S. works, is that these corporations do their own studies, they approve their own studies, they then pass over that knowledge, and we see EPA checking boxes, and we see this. One of the things that when I first started in this work in 2007, I realized, I'm supporting, every time I go to the store and I buy something that has these products in it, I'm voting for that product, right? And so that was my early days activism, I gotta move away, and slowly, and it's hard. It's if you're not wealthy, and I grew up very poor, without, choices on organic food, and at a time where we didn't even know that, we drink soy milk as kids, it was not good for you at all. It was Roundup Ready, it moved into Roundup Ready soy, They're moving away from what we purchase to support farmers that are producing good quality food, and thinking about where is our money going when we're voting as individuals. But yes, we need full campaigns. We should probably have a campaign that pushes Dole financially to stop utilizing these products, or we're going to boycott your goods, worldwide. Dole is a worldwide, and in that process, a lot of my work feels like we shuffle the problem offshore. As the experimental research facilities start to decline in Hawaii, as we see the west side shrink, it grows in Puerto Rico. It grows in Colombia. It grows in Costa Rica. Their pineapples aren't grown here anymore because of the labor movements in the 1940s and the efforts of plantation workers to fight for living wages, and fight, not even living wages, but some wage. And the battle that led us to these plantations abandoning Hawaii to go offshore, a boycott against Dole would actually help our brothers and sisters in Costa Rica, who are probably being poisoned at much higher rates than what they even get away with here. And so yeah, the pressure, but you see the way these corporations react, right? Bayer bought Monsanto and they dissolved the Monsanto name. As soon as there was a worldwide day of activism against Monsanto, they buy Monsanto and they erase the name, and they absorb these corporations, and they, since I've been fighting on the east side, or on the west side of Kauai, we've watched every single corporation change its name multiple times, Syngenta became Hartung, Pioneer and Dow DuPont merged with Dole with Dow and DuPont merged to create, and they ran on Corteva, which was a subsidiary of Dow. And when you start to spider out how vested these people are, they even own organic food companies. When you're buying Mask, it's just really, they're so well invested. And you see this happen not just with the names, but with the workers, and these people that work for the EPA, work for Monsanto, go back to the EPA, go back to Monsanto, and help these loopholes continue and perpetuate. It's a huge task, but it absolutely is part of the conversation. It should be part of the conversation. It should be part of all of our conversations on how do we divest from these corporations and how do we break them down. But the reality is that it's a huge thing, especially to get universities to pay attention because they're so well funded by Monsanto for their care.
I just wanted to add a quick note to that. We see that when we're working with universities a lot, the corporate influence, and we might ban glyphosate from the UCs, and then we have a weed scientist fighting back against us saying, you know, glyphosate does not cause cancer. So we looked into it and found that he was taking $700,000 from Monsanto, and we luckily got him kicked off the task force, but we see that happening a lot. And so I think one thing that we teach our students is like how to FOIA, how to file for a Freedom of Information Act request to see where are the professors at your university, where is their funding coming from? And protest that. If they're getting funding from Monsanto or Bayer, if your university is receiving a lot of funding from agrochemical companies, like, I agree, student movements are a huge way to make change. And so, you know, you can do that. You can ask your university to see where is the funding coming from. And I encourage, you know, students to do that. Okay, we only have time.
Real quick, the funding of our legislators is another thing.
Hallelujah.
Exact same thing. To the point, and I think it was made earlier about the clean elections. I'll say right now, after we couldn't get one bill registered the other year, I started to analyze the donations. I calculated all of the donations of Monsanto over a 10-year period of time. Who has received the highest amount? Sylvia Luke, one of the most powerful women in the state. Donovan Dela Cruz, who will never hear one of our bills. If you start to look and follow the money, whether it's universities or whether it's our legislators, that's a huge part of the problem. So taking the money out of politics and realizing, like, you know, they spent, I think it was $25 million trying to derail the science of one man who was looking at atrazine, a chemical that turned male frogs female, and they attacked him with millions and millions of dollars, and they did the exact same thing to us. You know, some poor girl from Kapaa that's like nobody. You know, they paid people to blog against us, paid people to pick us apart, paid people to discredit us, and yeah, follow the money back to our legislators, because you'll be shocked.
Aloha man kako. Kūʻike. It's a verb. I was raised with it. I've been in the movement for 40 plus years. It's good to see some of the old timers out here. More better even to see the young kiki and the up and comers. All are welcome. It's not that we don't know, because we already have an indigenous practices, traditional and customary, that already is the blue, black, and brown print from before. We already know what they do to overthrow of a sovereign nation and what came quickly with the mahele, the water mahele now. It's not that we don't know better. It's the fact that, as Milena would say, we've become so tolerant. We've become so compliant, complicitous, just so kind of like complacent, and it just happens. How much public hearings we've had, how much good legislators we've had through the years. But the truth is, we know it, Ebe, and we understand regeneration. I've been part of a group that's been introducing native oysters back into the polluted waters so that we can begin the discussion of Mauka to Makai. I work with many of the stewards on Hawai'i, like Stacey Sproat and Kapua and the rest of them. The bottom line is we get good people, we need more people, we need to be our own stewards, and we have to educate each other. And equally important, we gotta keep our lights like glowworms, you know what I'm trying to say? Because this stuff is thick and black and cancerous. You know, we have to not be burnt out. We have to really believe that there is the change of consciousness, because we are it. And that's the message to get out to people. Yeah, we're gonna work. We're gonna work the fields, we're gonna work the waters, we're gonna work the Mauka and Tumakai. We're gonna be in education systems, we're gonna be in land and water systems, but the bottom line is, we not can give up hope. You know, whether you're good and you can articulate, or you're good in the land and you mahi'ai, or you're good in the water. We need everybody. You know, that's the one thing about kapu aloha. One thing that the Mauna taught us, you know, kapu aloha, last ka to last ka. Everybody is welcome, yeah? Because it changes who you are. So don't get down and don't get depressed about what feels like $269 billion a year for the Secretary of Navy, because that's what their budget is. That's our taxpayer money to poison us. So I've been in this fight a long time, and the truth is it's a continuum. You know, we're part of longevity unless it kills us because we don't put into practice what we begin to know. So let us educate our own community, our own ohana, about what we ingest, body, mind, spirit, the messaging we take in, the foods. Mahalo, by the way, to the foods tonight. Excellent. In the whole family. It's been a long time since yeah. For everybody that put this together, mahalo, because it takes intergenerational, you know, zest and vigor, you know, not just intergenerational trauma. You know, I was a public defender for many years on 4 islands, including Maui, Molokai, and Lanai. I know a lot about Molokai. You cut those deers open, you know what you find? Tumors. Yeah, you cut around the tumors, you take out the meat, you sell them. We're beginning to have all of the evidence, but social media is something that helps us a lot because we can get it out to our communities. The problem is Monsanto and all of them, they're good because they go and pay off people in our community, and it breaks communities and it shatters family. That's what happened on Molokai, on a whole Kalihivai, you name it. So we gotta remain ku'e in ourselves. We have to have self-accountability and self-love and care, and then we spread it from that. Don't let them take our light. That's the main thing. That's what I learned from coming out from the phoenix, from the ashes, and burnout, you know. So you folks kind of young. Me and her are a little bit more same age, but a little bit on the side, a little bit more young. But that's
83, class of 83.
Class of 81.
There you go. Why high school? I got you.
That's not a group behind me. A couple of folks 10 under me. Everybody's a little bit younger, you know. But not to take away from our kupona, you know what I mean, who've been doing it for a long, long time. But it's a continuum. So please remember that, you know. We're not asking anyone for burnout. We're asking you for ku'e, to just be part. Because the reason they're pushing back so hard is because get movement. So don't think no more movement, but you gotta do person check, yeah. And I know we're my heart and my aloha kekahi ikekahi. We love one another. Mahalo.
All right, we're going to end with that comment, not question, but thank you so much. And you know, just to be respectful of the church, we gotta wind down. But panelists, if you have any last words, or just you've already said so much, so really, you know, you've left it all out here. But if there's anything that you know people can do to support your work, Kūʻike, like, we want to support farmers like you. So you know, what can people do to support you?
I think the greatest impact that could support farmers is to know the genealogy of your food. You are what you eat. If you know nothing about the food you eat, you don't even know yourself. So if you understand the genealogy of your food, where it comes from, who grew it, how they grew it, then you can start to make conscious changes. Yeah, and that'll just trickle down into the next generations who are watching. Yeah, we pass on behaviors through generations. Where we are today is because of the behaviors of our ancestors. Not all of them, but those who had influence. So I implore everyone here today to start there. Take a second, third look at your plate and figure it out. It's not rocket science, it's only food.
I would say educate yourselves, educate your friends, your family, share the information, continue to learn, and show up. You know, like we have hearings for some of these bills that would have given school buffer zones, you know, and maybe a handful of people show up. You know, now we have more and more people because of social media and our calls to action that submit written testimony. It's just one small thing. That's one small thing we do. Legislation is not the only answer, you know, but educate, it's a lifelong journey. You know, it's a lifelong journey. It took, you know, women decades and decades and decades, and a couple women had to jump in front of horses and kill themselves before we got the right to vote. So just hold on for the long haul. It's a lifelong battle, and be involved, engage with every group that speaks to your heart on this work, and do what feels right, and keep the light shining. Don't let yourself get crushed by the magnitude of these corporations and their darkness, because it's real.
How do I follow that? If there's anything that you leave with tonight from me, it's to be active. And like Kūʻike said, the neighborhood boards are a great way to get it on the record. It goes on Olelo, and you can go on the Olelo app or the Olelo website, and you can watch it over and over and over again. And then if you want to, you can clip it and put it on your social media. But if you do nothing after tonight, if you do not activate yourself and your community, then sister, you're right, the light is gonna go out. And I'll be damned if anybody in here needs help keeping their glow on. Call me, 238-9427. So thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much. TJ is going to lead us through a closing only, but before we do that, we have the raffles. So we're just going to do that, and just one more time, big thank you to these three wonderful people. It means so much.
Thank you, everyone. We're going to do a really quick raffle, but before then, I want to say thank you so much. I live in Hood River, Oregon, and I work with Mackenzie and Ruel, and I already texted my activist friends and said I want to do a screening and have a panel, because I live in an agricultural valley with a lot of farm workers who are not aware of this issue. So I already texted and made a plan. So I encourage everybody, where you live, you can always find people who are interested and make a plan and host an event. There are amazing spaces like this that want to host you. So, all right, we're gonna start with 3 packs of Moku jerky, which is a vegan mushroom jerky that Mackenzie's brother created and is available in the Whole Foods here. We went and we found it there, and Down to Earth, and in a lot of other places too. So here's the first one, which is a 3-pack. Alex Grant Hudd. And Ginger Durr. All right, and then we're gonna give away a cookbook that Mackenzie and her mom have worked on for years. For about 5 or 6 years, they've been piloting this cookbook and working on all vegan, right? Yeah. Vegan recipes and gluten-free recipes. It's called Ground Bakers. There's amazing articles and stories from really special people in the food movement to that I highly encourage everyone to buy online. You can buy it online. Charles Carvalho. All right, we have a hat from Rewild up next, which is our organization. That is for Mike Leal. Nice, you're awesome. All right, we have 2 Patagonia hats. I'm going to start with one of them. That's the blank one. Kira Yelmond. Yay! And the second hat. Norman Tanzi. Is Norman here? Amazing. All right, and now we're in the Patagonia backpack. Clifford. Okay, amazing. And the coveted Patagonia duffel bag. Let's go. Norman Tansey, there you go. All right, thank you. Back to panelists.
Okay, so I hope all of you went on Google and looked up Oli Mahalo. If you did, great. You can sing with me, you can Oli with me. If not, stand up and grab somebody's hand next to you and we can all listen to me together. And again, thank you for the wonderful food, to the Church of the Crossroads. Mahalo for letting us use your venue tonight, and to each and every one of you, thank you for joining us and supporting what we all do. And thank you for supporting each other. So we're going to do Oli Mahalo. 1, 2, 3. Hawai'i Kamakea-Ohelo. Kūʻike Kamakea-Ohelo. Kūʻike Kamakea-Ohelo. Mawehe mai nā lehua. Mai ka hoʻohui ka halawaiʻla. Mahalo e nā akua. Mahalo e nā kupuna laʻea. Mahalo me ke alohala. Mahalo me ke alohala. Mahalo.
Hey Bill, looking good.